They didn't just walk away. They were removed, because what was about to awaken inside you couldn't be born in front of them. 1. What they took was never meant to stay. They didn't just leave. They didn't just quietly walk out of your life like a passing breeze. They left like a storm, tearing through places you didn't even know were fragile, shaking the walls you thought were strong, and taking pieces of you that you didn't realize you had given away. It wasn't just the loss of a person, it was the loss of meaning, the loss of feeling understood, the loss of that one place that used to feel like safety, even if it was never real. And yet, you're still here. You wake up even when the weight on your chest tells you to stay in bed. You show up to the world even if your soul feels distant. You try to smile even when your heart feels like it's still bleeding. That's not weakness. That's proof that something inside you refuses to collapse. Something sacred is still standing inside you, a part of your soul that knows you weren't created to break. But I know it's hard. I know there are nights where your pillow becomes the only witness to your pain, where you stare at the ceiling, wondering why silence feels louder than screams, where the quiet becomes unbearable, not because it's peaceful, but because it reminds you of everything that's missing. And that's exactly when this message reaches you, not in your strength, not in your healed chapter, but right now, when you're still hurting, still confused, still replaying every word they said before they walked away. You need to know this. You were not abandoned. You were not forgotten. You were not left behind. You were being rewritten. Allah didn't let them walk away because you were unworthy. He let them go because they were blocking what He was about to place in your life. And what's coming is too holy to grow in the presence of people who were only meant to be temporary. They took what you thought was love. They held your heart like it was permanent. They made you feel seen in a world where you had grown used to being invisible. And maybe, for a moment, it felt real. But not everything that feels safe is meant to be shelter. Not everything that feels right is meant to stay. And not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes it's a rescue. Allah will never allow something to be taken from you, unless He is trying to make space for something greater, something cleaner, deeper, eternal. But right now, it's okay if you don't see that. Right now, your heart is still aching, and you don't want divine wisdom. You just want the pain to stop. That's okay too. Even the Prophet, peace be upon him, experienced moments of heartbreak and deep sadness. Even he cried when he lost what he loved. So who told you your tears make you weak? Sometimes the soul doesn't need answers. It just needs permission to feel. So feel it. Feel the emptiness. Feel the weight of what's no longer there. Feel the hollow space where they once stood. And when you've sat in that silence long enough, you'll start to notice something strange. The silence isn't just silence. It's healing. It's protection. It's Allah covering you, hiding you, repairing you, rebuilding you in a way that only solitude can. Because what was taken from you wasn't yours forever. It was a borrowed piece of your story, a temporary chapter in a book that Allah is still writing. And that chapter needed to end, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You thought it was love, and maybe it was in a human way. But it wasn't the kind of love that Allah writes, because the love Allah writes doesn't confuse your worth. It doesn't make you beg. It doesn't leave when you're no longer convenient. The love Allah writes honors your soul. It protects your light. It brings you closer to Him. So maybe this was never about losing someone. Maybe it was about finding yourself, the version of you that no longer needs to be chosen by people, because you finally understand you were already chosen by Allah, and when He chooses you, you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't shrink to be held, you stand. Even if you're shaking, even if you're alone, even if all you have left is faith the size of a whisper, because that's enough. You didn't lose them, You lost a future that was never going to lead you where Allah wants you to go. You lost a bond that was created in weakness, not written in light. You lost a version of yourself that was willing to accept less, just to feel something. And maybe that's what this heartbreak was always about. Not to take something from you, but to take you out of something that was slowly undoing your soul. You are not ruined, you are not broken, you are not behind. You are being remade by the one who knows every wound, every sigh, every night you begged for something or someone to stay. But what stayed was Allah. Even in the silence, even in the pain, even in the goodbye. And one day, you'll look back and say, what I thought I lost was never mine, and what came after was everything I was always meant to hold. 2. Allah didn't punish you, He protected you. You keep wondering what you did wrong. You keep looking back, tracing every step, every word, every moment. You keep replaying it all, as if somewhere in that replay you'll find the reason they left, the reason you were let go, the reason you were no longer enough. You keep thinking this is a punishment, that maybe Allah is angry with you, that maybe you failed some divine test and now you're being made to feel it in the most personal way possible. But that's not the truth. The truth is softer than that, and deeper, and harder to accept, because it doesn't come with blame. It comes with mercy. Allah didn't punish you. He protected you. He saw something you couldn't. He heard conversations you never did. He witnessed intentions that were hidden from your heart. You were busy holding on to them, but Allah was already letting them go, because what they brought into your life was not peace. It was delay. It was distraction. It was a slow erosion of your soul, dressed up as love, comfort, or connection. And Allah, in His mercy, tore them away, not because you weren't enough for them, but because they were never meant to come with you where He's taking you next. You were attached to someone who couldn't carry the weight of your heart. You gave them access to a soul that was always meant to be held by something sacred, and when they mishandled it, even if unintentionally, Allah stepped in. He doesn't always remove people because they're bad. Sometimes He removes them because they were only meant to walk with you for a season, and you were trying to turn a season into forever, but forever belongs to Allah. You thought you needed them to feel complete. You thought their love was your sign that you mattered. You thought their presence was a reflection of your worth. But Allah had to separate you from that illusion, so you could finally return to the truth. Your worth was never in their hands. It was written by the one who formed you from clay and breathed into you His Spirit. He watched you make dua for them. He heard your voice tremble as you asked for clarity. And in His mercy, not His anger, He gave you an answer. But here's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes Allah's answer feels like pain. Because in order to protect your future, He had to break what was false in your present. And that breaking, it wasn't cruel. It was the beginning of your healing. You begged Him for peace, but didn't realize He'd first have to remove the chaos you had gotten used to calling love. You asked Him for guidance, but didn't know He'd have to strip away everything you once leaned on, so you'd finally lean on Him. You asked Him to make you stronger, but didn't expect that strength would be built in a season of deep, aching loneliness. You thought love would feel warm, simple, permanent. But real love, the kind Allah writes, is often preceded by isolation, by protection, by a necessary distance from people who would dim the light He's trying to ignite in you. They weren't your destiny, they were your detour, and Allah removed them because the cost of keeping them was the slow disappearance of you. He didn't want that. He didn't want to see your soul shrink. He didn't want to watch you sacrifice pieces of your dignity just to feel wanted by someone who never truly saw your worth. So He stepped in, quietly, suddenly, painfully, and you called it heartbreak. But it was actually divine interception. It was the invisible hand of your Lord, pulling you back from a place that would have cost you everything. And now you're left with silence, with nights that feel too long, with mornings that carry the weight of unanswered prayers, with memories you're trying to unlove. But beneath all that noise is the whisper of something sacred. I know what they couldn't say. I saw what you didn't. I protected you, even if it didn't feel like protection. Maybe one day you'll look back and understand. Maybe not. But even if the clarity never comes, trust that the mercy already did. Because you were not discarded. You were delivered from a life that would have slowly drowned your soul in a sea of false love and incomplete connection. And one day, when the real love comes, the love that Allah sends, the love that doesn't wound you to feel alive, you'll see why this chapter had to end the way it did. It wasn't cruelty, it wasn't punishment. It was divine protection, it was love, just not the kind you were expecting, and it saved you more than you'll ever know. 3. You didn't lose love, you were released from delay. You keep calling it a loss. You whisper it to yourself in the quiet. I lost them. I lost love. I lost everything I thought was finally real. But what if you didn't lose anything? What if what felt like love was actually a delay, disguised as a blessing? What if Allah didn't take love away from you, but freed you from something that was slowly delaying your becoming? You didn't lose love. You were released from something that was slowing down your soul's journey. You were released from hands that couldn't hold the weight of your heart. You were released from a mirror that only reflected parts of you, not all of you. You thought it was love because it lit you up in the beginning, because it filled the silence, because it made you feel less alone. But there's a difference between being loved and being distracted from your healing. There's a difference between feeling seen and being known fully, completely, without performance. You see, Allah knows the truth that you were too kind to admit, that what you were calling love was actually attachment, a longing for comfort, a desperation for warmth, any warmth, even if it came from someone who didn't know how to handle your depth. And He knew that if you stayed in that space any longer, you would have begun to shrink yourself just to keep their affection. You would have started dimming your own light, just to be more manageable for someone who never saw your full shine. You kept hoping they'd see you, that they'd change, that they'd finally recognize what you brought into their life. But the longer you waited, the more you started losing parts of yourself in the process. That's not love, that's delay. And Allah, out of love for you, ended it. Suddenly, without warning, without closure. Because He had to tear you away from what was slowly numbing your spirit, from what was keeping you too busy to notice your soul was starving. You didn't lose love. You lost a version of comfort that was never meant to carry you to your next level. You lost a connection that was too shallow to withstand the weight of your purpose. You lost a placeholder, not a partner. And I know it's hard to hear that, because your heart was sincere, your intention was real. You gave your best, didn't you? You showed up with your whole soul. You loved with everything in you. You prayed for them. You defended them. You saw the good in them, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It means your love was pure, even if it wasn't returned with the same purity. But Allah doesn't waste hearts like yours. He doesn't watch you break and walk away. He doesn't see you cry and remain silent. He doesn't allow pain to enter your life unless it's making room for something greater. And that's what this was. A clearing. A painful, divine clearing of something that looked beautiful on the outside, but would have rotted your spirit if you stayed too long. Because what's coming for you is not the kind of love that flickers under pressure. It's not the kind of love that requires you to earn it, fix it, or beg for it to stay. What's coming is the kind of love that is sent not chased. The kind that comes with peace, not confusion. The kind that grows your deen, not your anxiety. And you weren't going to meet that love while you were still gripping what was only meant to pass through you. So Allah released you, not as punishment, but as mercy, as a redirection, as a divine way of saying, this isn't the one, this isn't the place, keep going. And yes, it hurts, because even delays can feel like destiny when you've waited long enough. But Allah's mercy doesn't always look like comfort. Sometimes it looks like disruption, sometimes it looks like heartbreak. Sometimes it looks like the very thing you begged Him not to do. But one day, you'll understand that your soul was always going to be delayed in that love. And you didn't need a delay. You needed a breakthrough. So no, you didn't lose love. You were freed from what was never love to begin with. You were released from the version of you that was willing to settle just to feel wanted. And now you're walking lighter. Now you're praying deeper. Now you're beginning to understand that real love doesn't delay your growth. It awakens it. What they called love kept you stuck. What Allah is preparing will set your soul free, and you won't have to chase it. Because this time, love will come gently, wrapped in peace, rooted in faith, and carrying the scent of everything you begged for in the dark. For the ache you feel is sacred space being made for something greater. You keep asking yourself why it still hurts. Why does it linger? Why does the ache return every night like it has your address memorized? Why does it whisper through your chest when everything finally feels calm? Why does it grip you in the middle of your prayer, your laughter, your silence? You've tried to numb it. You've tried to distract yourself. You've tried to tell yourself you're over it. But deep down, you know you're not. There's an emptiness inside you that no quote, no friend, no explanation can touch. And maybe you've started to think that this ache means something is wrong with you. But listen closely now. Let your soul hear this. This ache isn't your weakness. It isn't your punishment. It isn't proof that you're broken beyond repair. It's sacred space. Pain doesn't always mean something has gone wrong. Sometimes it means something beautiful is being made. Something eternal, something holy, something you would have never been ready to receive unless something else was first removed. You prayed for closeness to Allah. You asked for strength. You whispered for meaning. You begged for real peace. But you didn't expect that peace would first come. Through a kind of heartbreak that strips you of everything temporary, Allah could have answered you with comfort, with ease, with warmth. But He loved you too much for that. So instead, He created a void, a sacred emptiness in your chest, where all the noise used to live, where people's words used to echo, where your past used to play on repeat, where false love used to rest. And now there's nothing there except silence. But that silence is not abandonment. It's preparation. Because before Allah fills a heart, He empties it. Before He grants deep love, He removes shallow attachments. Before He gives you clarity, He pulls you away from everything that kept you confused. And before He introduces you to what's written for your soul, He gently removes what was only good for your emotions, but toxic for your destiny. So don't rush this ache. Don't try to fill it with noise. Don't call it a curse just because it's painful. Let it be sacred. Let this season of emptiness soften you, slow you down, pull you into places you've been avoiding. Because healing doesn't always begin with answers. Sometimes it begins with divine silence. The kind of silence where your heart finally starts hearing what it was too distracted to feel before. This ache, the one you keep praying away, is actually your heart adjusting to the absence of what it was never meant to carry. You thought that person was home, but home doesn't leave. Home doesn't hurt. Home doesn't make you question your own reflection. And now that they're gone, you're sitting in the quiet ruins, asking what went wrong. But what if nothing went wrong? What if this ache is actually the first sign that everything is finally being made right? That, for the first time, you're not loving from desperation. You're healing in dignity. You're no longer clinging. You're creating space. And yes, it hurts, because what's holy often does. But one day, you'll look back on this ache and realize it was the place where your real life began. It was the moment your heart finally emptied of what was holding it hostage, and it became ready. Ready for the kind of love that doesn't take from you, but adds to you. The kind of love that Allah writes. The kind that doesn't need fixing or fighting. The kind that carries you back to Him, not away. So let the ache stay. Let it stretch your soul. Let it break the old patterns. Let it remind you that you're human and you're healing. Because every tear you cry in this sacred silence is washing away the illusions that once kept you blind. And every lonely night is preparing your heart to recognize what's real when it finally arrives. You are not empty. You are being cleared. You are not falling apart. You are being carved open for something greater, something heavier in meaning, deeper in peace, stronger in soul. And when it comes, you'll realize the ache wasn't just pain. It was proof that your heart still feels, still hopes, still longs for what's eternal. And Allah never leaves a heart like that unanswered. 5. They blocked the light, meant to awaken you. You keep wondering why it had to happen like this. Why did they come into your life at all? Just to leave? Why did they make you feel safe, only to become the reason you now find safety hard to trust? Why did Allah let it get that deep, that emotional, that real, if it wasn't meant to stay? But what if the real question isn't, why did they leave? What if the real question is, what were they blocking? Because sometimes the people you cling to the hardest are the very ones standing in front of the door Allah is trying to open for you. You couldn't see it while you were with them, because they made you feel loved, wanted, important. They filled a space that had been aching for attention for years. They touched places you had hidden from the world. They gave you the illusion of healing, but not the roots of it. You thought they were bringing light into your life. But slowly, they began to cast shadows, and you didn't even notice. You started silencing your spirit to keep their presence. You started shrinking your light so you wouldn't outshine their comfort. You started accepting confusion as love, and emotional inconsistency as passion. And even when your soul started to feel tight around them, you stayed. Because when someone makes you feel seen after years of feeling invisible, you'll try to make them your destiny, even if they were only meant to be a mirror. But Allah knows what we don't. He sees the intentions that never touch the tongue. He hears the private whispers of people's hearts. And He saw that you were building something sacred in a space that couldn't protect it. He saw that while you were pouring love into them, they were unknowingly blocking the very light meant to awaken you. So He removed them, not to punish you, not to break your heart, but to save your purpose. Because their presence was starting to cover your calling. And their love, though it may have been real in moments, was too small for the version of you Allah is bringing to life. There are some people who love the current version of you, but would never understand who you're becoming. They love your softness, your silence, your simplicity, but would be intimidated by your spiritual strength if you fully stepped into it. So Allah made space. He didn't just separate you from them. He separated you from the version of you that kept trying to earn what was never truly aligned with your soul. And now, here you are, alone, quiet, trying to understand what just happened, why it ended so suddenly, why someone who once called you everything now calls you nothing, why the messages stopped, why the plans disappeared, why you still look at their name and feel a pull you can't explain. But beneath all that pain is a deeper truth. It had to end. Because the light Allah is pouring into your soul now requires space, it requires solitude, it requires separation from people who cannot hold what Allah is placing inside you. You were meant to wake up, to rise, to build a relationship with Allah that was no longer competing with someone else's attention. But that couldn't happen while your heart was still entangled in their presence. Even if they meant well, even if they weren't cruel, even if part of them did care. Intentions don't equal alignment, and presence doesn't always mean purpose. So Allah took them away, gently for some, violently for others, but always with mercy. Because He knows the light He placed inside you. He knows what it needs to grow, and He knew that if you stayed any longer, you would have settled for a love that couldn't protect your spirit. You don't see it now. You still think of them with tenderness. You still wonder if they were the one. You still blame yourself, wondering if you ruined something that was meant to be. But what if they weren't the one? What if they were the block? What if their chapter had to end? So your real beginning could finally start. The version of you that is coming. The one that walks with Allah in secret. The one that glows even when no one's watching. The one that finally sees love as peace, not proof. That version needed a clean sky to rise in, and they were standing in the clouds. So now the storm has passed, the silence is loud, the ache is heavy. But if you listen closely, you'll feel something else. Light. It's quiet now, but it's building, inside you, around you, above you. And one day you'll look back and whisper, if they had stayed, I never would have seen this light. 6. You're not waiting for closure. You're waiting for revelation. You keep waiting for something to explain it. You want a message, a reason, a goodbye that makes sense. A moment where they turn around and say, here's why I left, and here's why it wasn't your fault. But that moment never comes. So you sit in the dark, scrolling through memories, replaying conversations that now feel like dreams, trying to solve a puzzle that has missing pieces, and no one to return them. You call it waiting for closure, but what you're really waiting for is peace. You think that peace will come when they finally apologize, or admit what they did, or tell you they still care, just enough to validate the storm they left behind. But peace that relies on someone else's voice was never peace at all. And maybe that's why Allah hasn't let them return. Maybe that's why the door remains closed. Maybe that's why their silence is so loud. Not because you need their words, but because your soul is being taught to stop chasing them altogether. You're not waiting for closure, you're waiting for revelation, because closure is human. It's a clean sentence at the end of a messy story. But revelation is divine. It doesn't just explain what happened, it shows you who you've become because of it. It shows you the protection hidden in the heartbreak, the growth buried under the grief, the mercy that felt like pain at the time, but now looks like a gate that saved your soul. Right now it feels like a wound that won't stop bleeding. You pray, you cry, you whisper into the night, Ya Allah, just tell me why it had to end like that. Why so suddenly? Why so painfully? Why with so much confusion? And the only reply is silence. But silence is not the absence of Allah. Silence is the answer, because in that silence, your soul is being invited to stop looking for peace in people and start looking for it in Him. They didn't disappear because you weren't worth an explanation. They disappeared because Allah was trying to teach you. That real closure isn't in someone's words, it's in His wisdom. You might never get that text. You might never hear their side. You might never understand how someone could hold you that close and then let you go like you were nothing. But here's what you will get. You'll get strength you didn't know was inside you. You'll get clarity that couldn't exist while you were still waiting on them. You'll get a version of yourself that no longer needs someone else's understanding to validate your journey. And you'll realize, slowly, quietly, painfully, that what hurt you didn't destroy you. It revealed you. Because Allah doesn't leave His servants lost in confusion forever. He only delays the clarity until your heart is strong enough to carry it. And by the time you finally understand why it ended, you won't be asking anymore, because something in you will have shifted. You won't need their answers. You won't need their words. You'll have His, the whisper that enters your heart in the stillness. You didn't lose anything. I removed what was delaying your light. You didn't need closure. You needed me. You see, when Allah wants to free you, He doesn't always give you logic. He gives you silence. He gives you space. He gives you time alone, so that the noise of other people finally fades, and you begin to hear your own soul again. And within that soul is something sacred, something patient, something resilient, something that stops waiting to be chosen, because it remembers it was already chosen by Allah. So stop holding your breath, waiting for someone to come back and make it all make sense. It already makes sense. You just haven't grown into the version of you that can see it yet. But you're on your way. Every tear, every sujood, every night you sit with your confusion and ask Allah for peace, is moving you closer to that revelation. And when it comes, it won't just explain what happened. It will make you grateful that it did, because some stories don't need an ending from them. They need a beginning from Allah. And this silence, this ache, this waiting, it's not the end. It's the sacred moment just before your soul finally understands. 7. Your heartbreak was a divine rebuilding in disguise. You think your heart broke the day they walked away, or maybe the day they changed, or the moment you realized they never really loved you the way you loved them. You can still feel the crack in your chest, the way your breath got shorter, the way your whole body remembered the pain, long before your mind could process it. Heartbreak doesn't just visit the heart, it settles in the bones. It hides in your silence. It shows up in your sujood, in your voice when you say their name in dua, even after you've stopped saying it out loud. You keep calling it heartbreak. You keep saying, I was ruined after that. But what if you weren't ruined? What if that heartbreak was the beginning of your rebuilding? What if the pain that crushed you was actually carving out space for a version of you that couldn't be born while they were still there? It didn't feel divine, did it? No, it felt human. Too human. It felt like betrayal, like confusion, like being seen one day, then erased the next. It felt like everything you built with them. Every word, every plan, every sacred moment was destroyed in an instant. But Allah doesn't destroy without rebuilding. He doesn't break your heart, unless what's inside it needs to be freed. And sometimes the prison is made of people. Sometimes the bars are made of comfort, of familiarity, of old dreams that no longer fit the person you're becoming. You didn't just lose love. You lost a version of yourself that thought love was supposed to hurt like that. You lost the you that was willing to shrink just to keep someone who never really saw your soul. Allah didn't let your heart shatter to ruin you. He let it break, so the pieces that didn't belong to you could fall away, because you had wrapped your identity around someone else's affection, and He saw what you couldn't. That you were beginning to forget who you are when no one's looking, so He let the bond collapse. He let the messages stop. He let the attachment burn itself out slowly, painfully. And you thought it was the end, but it was the opening. That crack in your chest, it's where the light entered. That ache you couldn't explain, it was the sound of illusions falling off your soul. Because how could Allah give you a love that's written in peace, when you were still holding on to a version of love that was written in survival? You weren't growing in that love. You were tolerating. You were explaining your worth. You were waiting to be chosen again and again by someone who kept forgetting how rare you are. That wasn't love. That was a lesson, and it was loud, and it was sharp, but it was mercy. Mercy in disguise, because sometimes Allah won't let you stay where you're comfortable, if it means dying slowly in a space that looks like love, but quietly suffocates your spirit. So He let the heartbreak happen, and it broke you open. It made you cry in the middle of the night when no one was watching. It made you question your worth, your prayers, your softness. It made you kneel on the prayer mat, whispering, "Ya Allah, why would you let this happen to me?" And that's when the rebuilding began. Not with loud breakthroughs, not with healing quotes or happy distractions, but in the quiet. In the nights you cried and still got up for Fajr. In the days you wanted to text them, but made dhikr instead. In the moments you felt unloved and turned to the one whose love never leaves. That's when Allah started rebuilding you, not all at once, not in a way anyone else could see, but piece by piece, prayer by prayer, tear by tear. He was shaping a version of you that is no longer built on being needed by someone else, but on being known by Him. You're not broken. You're becoming the kind of soul that walks with dignity, even in silence, becoming someone who no longer begs for clarity from people who thrive in confusion, becoming someone who doesn't shrink to be held, but expands to be chosen by what is real. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not even soon, you'll look back and whisper something powerful. That wasn't heartbreak, that was awakening. It didn't ruin me, it released me. It didn't destroy me, it delivered me. Because I was never meant to stay broken, I was meant to rise, just like I was always designed to. But first, Allah had to break the cage I called love, so I could finally fly free into the one that was written for me. 8. What Allah replaces is always eternal. You cried over what left. You begged for it to stay, even after it became clear that it wasn't staying. You gave it chances. You forgave what hurt you. You held on to something already slipping, not because you didn't see the signs, but because your heart was just that loyal. And when it finally disappeared, it felt like something inside you went with it. The laughter, the warmth, the vision of the future you had been secretly building around them. Gone. You mourned them like a death. And it was one, wasn't it? The death of a version of you, the version that still believed they would come back, the version that still believed love alone could make someone stay. But now, it's just you. You and this wide, echoing silence. You and the nights that feel endless. You and the ache that visits when no one else does. And yet somehow, in the silence, in the absence, you're beginning to feel something. Not loud, not fast, but steady. A peace that didn't come from closure. A softness that didn't come from their apology. A healing that isn't tied to anything they ever said. It's coming from somewhere else, from something higher. It's coming from Allah, because what left was replaced, not by someone else. Not immediately, not with grand entrances or perfect timing, but with something sacred, something your heart couldn't hold while it was still full of them, something that couldn't be delivered while your soul was still cluttered, with conversations that never brought peace. You see, Allah doesn't replace in haste. He replaces in wisdom. He removes the temporary dash to make room for what lasts. And when He replaces something, it's not just better, it's eternal. You didn't even realize it. But your soul had been living on borrowed light. You were feeding your heart with connection, but starving it of purpose. You were surviving on attention, but aching for alignment. And Allah, in His mercy, stepped in. He took what you thought you couldn't live without. Not to destroy you, but to show you what real presence feels like. His. Because real love doesn't confuse you. Real love doesn't make you feel like you're hard to love. Real love doesn't pull you away from your Creator just to hold you closer. And when Allah brings you love again, you'll know it. Not because it's perfect, but because it will feel peaceful in your chest. You won't feel like you're walking on glass, waiting to be enough. You'll feel steady, safe, seen by someone who recognizes that your soul was formed in worship, long before it ever needed to be adored by people. And if he doesn't bring someone right now, it's not because you've been forgotten. It's because he's still making space, not for a person, but for purpose, for strength, for your full return to him. Because sometimes what he gives you after heartbreak isn't another heart to hold. Sometimes it's your own. Sometimes it's the version of you that no longer compromises your values just to feel chosen. Sometimes it's the spiritual maturity to walk away from what you once begged for. That is the beginning of eternity, not eternity with someone, but eternity with Allah. And in that space, you begin to realize you never really needed what was taken. You just needed time to see, to feel, to remember what love was always meant to be. Not something that wounds, but something that worships. Not something that takes, but something that brings you back to who you were before the world told you to be small. And when the time is right. When your soul is healed, when your silence has been honored, when your love for Allah is no longer competing with anyone else, He may send someone who doesn't interrupt your peace, someone who protects your prayers, someone who doesn't delay your growth, but reflects it, and you'll smile because you'll know. This wasn't a replacement. This was what it was always supposed to be, something eternal, written by Allah, protected by Him, delivered when your soul was finally strong enough to carry it. Let this silence remain. Don't rush away from it, because somewhere within it, your soul just heard what it's been waiting years to understand. They didn't destroy you. Allah was just making space for something eternal. And soon, you'll know exactly why it had to happen this way. There's a reason Allah has kept you invisible. Not because you're forgotten, but because you're being prepared to walk a road so rare, so heavy, so sacred. Only a few souls in the entire world are trusted with it. Small pause, then softer. You're not stuck. You're not falling behind. You're being chosen for a story the world isn't ready to see yet. Stay until the end, because today you'll understand why silence was never your enemy. It was your greatest protection. 1. You're not stuck. Allah is tightening the bowstring before launching you. You're looking at your life, and it feels like nothing is moving. You pray, but the situation stays the same. You work harder, but the doors still don't open. You cry, but the answers feel delayed. You're standing in one place while it feels like everyone else is moving ahead. You wonder, why is my life frozen? Did I make a mistake? Did Allah leave me behind? But the truth is the opposite. You're not being punished. You're not forgotten. You're not stuck. You are being prepared. Right now, Allah is doing something you can't fully see. Just like an arrow, before it flies powerfully forward, it must first be pulled deeply backward. The pull feels unfair. It feels painful. It feels endless. But the more an arrow is pulled back, the farther and faster it flies. If Allah allowed you to move right now, you would fly a short distance and fall. You would achieve a small dream and break under pressure. You would enter a blessing unprepared and lose it. Allah is not just planning your movement. He's planning your flight, your victory, your moment of unstoppable breakthrough. And that breakthrough requires patience that cannot be faked. It needs sabr that only loneliness can teach. It needs a heart that doesn't just trust Allah in theory, but trusts Him when everything looks impossible. That's what Allah is building inside you. You are not stuck. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are the arrow, being pulled back quietly, silently, painfully, only because you are meant to be launched farther than you ever thought possible. The tension you feel in your heart right now, that frustration, that sadness, it's not the end of your story. It's the last stretch before Allah says, "Now fly." And when you fly, it will be so sudden, so fast, so powerful, that even you will be shocked at how far you go, how high you rise, how beautifully Allah planned your journey. Stay patient, stay grounded, because very soon the arrow will be released, and you won't just move forward. You will soar in a way the world will not be able to explain, except by saying, "Only Allah could have done this." 2. The silence around you means Allah is about to let the world hear your name, but on His terms. You look around and all you hear is silence. No big changes, no signs, no answers. Just long days where everything feels still and quiet. And in that silence, your mind starts whispering, "Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe my prayers don't matter. Maybe Allah forgot me." But the truth is, silence is not punishment. Silence is where Allah does His most beautiful work. When a seed is planted deep underground, there is no applause. There are no crowds. There are no fireworks. Only darkness. Only waiting. But underneath that silent earth, that seed is growing roots, strengthening, preparing for a moment when it will break through. Not as a weak plant, but as something powerful. That's exactly what's happening to you. Allah has placed you in a season of silence, because He is preparing a moment for you that must happen on His terms, not yours, not the world's. If Allah let the world see you too early, they would misunderstand you. They would try to label you. They would pull you into circles that would destroy the purity Allah is building inside you. So instead, Allah covers you. He hides you. He works on you, quietly, gently, powerfully. He doesn't need noise to create greatness. He creates greatness in the hidden places. And when the time is right, when your roots are deep enough, when your soul is strong enough, when your heart beats with sincerity instead of desperation, Allah Himself will remove the veil. And when He does, the world will see a version of you that they cannot deny, because you will not rise by your own efforts. You will rise by His command. When Allah writes your moment of success, no human can block it. No envy can stop it. No competitor can outshine it. Because your story will not be powered by your hustle, it will be powered by His will. So if your life feels silent right now, if your prayers feel like they are echoing into emptiness, don't lose heart. Your silence is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of construction. You are being built for a moment that is so precious. Allah is protecting it with silence until it's ready. And when He finally says, "Now," the silence you're drowning in will break open into blessings louder than you can imagine. The world will hear your name, but only after Allah has written it in a way no one can erase. Stay patient, because the stage Allah is building for you is not small. It's worth every second of this sacred silence. 3. You're watching others shine, because Allah is still polishing you. You sit there sometimes watching, scrolling through your phone, listening to conversations, seeing everyone around you shining. One by one, they're announcing new jobs, they're getting married, they're buying houses, they're living dreams you used to pray for. And a small voice inside you wonders, did Allah forget about me? Am I falling behind? Was I just not chosen? But listen carefully. What you're seeing isn't the full picture. You're only seeing the flash, not the foundation. Some people shine early, but without being polished, their light flickers out just as fast. Because a diamond that hasn't been polished properly might sparkle for a moment under the lights, but under pressure, it cracks. Allah, in His infinite love and wisdom, doesn't want your light to be momentary. He's not preparing you for temporary attention. He's preparing you for lasting brilliance. Right now, while others are chasing moments, Allah is polishing you. Quietly, painfully, precisely, He's smoothing the rough edges of your character. He's strengthening the parts of you that would have collapsed under pressure. He's teaching you patience, trust, and silent endurance. Lessons that can't be learned in applause, only in solitude. Because the kind of light Allah wants you to carry needs a soul that has been refined, not rushed. It's not that you're not shining. It's that Allah is making sure when you do shine, you will never have to fear breaking. You will never have to apologize for rushing too soon. You will never have to fake a smile for a life that doesn't fit your soul. The season you're in now, where you feel unseen, uncelebrated, unnoticed, is sacred. It's polishing season. Every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, every silent heartbreak, it's polishing you into someone who doesn't just survive blessings, but carries them with strength, wisdom, and gratitude. The shine you're being prepared for won't just light up your own path. It will light up the paths of everyone who sees you. It will be real. It will be pure. It will be undeniable. And when Allah decides it's time, your shine will be so powerful, people won't just admire it. They'll know it could only have come from Him. Stay patient, because you're not missing out. You're not being punished, you're being polished for a light that will never fade. 4. You're being hidden because your story needs time to grow roots before it bears fruit. You're looking at your life and it feels like nothing is blooming. No big success, no big changes, just silent days and quiet nights. Meanwhile, everyone else seems to be harvesting, getting the results, reaching their goals, living their dreams. And you wonder, what about me? When will it be my turn? Is something wrong with me? But what you can't see yet is that your life is not barren. It's underground. It's growing roots. Before any tree touches the sky, it spends a long time digging into the earth. Invisible, unseen, unnoticed. If the roots aren't deep enough, the first storm will rip the tree out of the ground. But if the roots are strong, the tree will survive storms that destroy everything else around it. That's what Allah is doing with you. Right now, your success isn't being delayed. It's being deepened. Your dreams aren't being denied. They're being rooted. Every prayer you whispered with a broken heart, every tear you cried when no one was watching, every small act of patience you kept choosing when giving up seemed easier. They didn't disappear. They were watering your roots. And roots grow quietly. No audience, no applause, no recognition. But roots are what hold everything together when blessings finally arrive. If Allah gave you the fruits before the roots, the blessings would destroy you. The success would overwhelm you. The attention would break you. Allah loves you too much to let you bloom before you're ready. He loves you too much to let you fall in love with a temporary success when He's building you for something eternal. That's why your story feels invisible right now. Because before Allah shows the world the fruit of your journey, He is making sure your soul has roots deep enough to carry it. Protect it, honor it. When the time is right, not by force, not by rushing, not by fear, you will bloom. And it will happen so naturally, so beautifully that even you will realize. The wait was not a waste. The silence was not a punishment. The hiddenness was a blessing. The roots you're growing now will protect the blessings that are coming later. Stay patient. Stay rooted, because when you finally bear fruit, it will not be ordinary. It will be something that generations will eat from, and when they taste the sweetness of what Allah grew inside you, they will know. This was a tree watered by sabr, sacrifice, and secret prayers. 5. Allah is stretching your capacity for a blessing, bigger than you were asking for. You asked Allah for something. Maybe you asked for love. Maybe you asked for success. Maybe you asked for peace. You made dua. You cried in sujood. You begged with a heart that believed, and yet, nothing. And you wonder, was I asking for too much? Was I even heard? Maybe Allah doesn't want to give it to me. But what you don't realize is, you weren't asking for too much. You were actually asking for too little. Compared to what Allah wants to give you, you were thinking small. Allah was thinking infinite. You were asking for a cup of water. Allah was preparing an ocean. And oceans require bigger vessels, stronger hearts, wider souls. That's why it feels so hard right now. Allah is stretching your heart, stretching your patience, stretching your faith. He's not ignoring your dua. He's upgrading it. He's building a version of you that can hold the blessing, not just taste it for a moment and lose it. If He answered you right away, you would have received something you weren't prepared to handle. It might have overwhelmed you. It might have broken you. It might have destroyed what was still fragile inside your soul. Allah sees the weight of what you're really praying for. Even when you don't. You're asking for a marriage? Allah wants to give you a marriage built on Jannah standards, not dunya fantasy. You're asking for success? Allah wants to give you success with barakah, success that doesn't destroy your deen, your peace, your soul. You're asking for healing. Allah wants to heal not just your wound, but your whole heart, your future, your unseen scars. That's why it's heavy. That's why it's painful. That's why it's slow. Because Allah is building your capacity. He's stretching your soul to fit a blessing. So big, so pure, so powerful, that when it arrives, it won't just change your life. It will change generations after you. You feel tired right now. You feel empty. You feel stretched beyond what you thought you could survive. But you're not breaking. You're expanding. You're not being denied. You're being designed carefully, lovingly, by the one who knows what you're capable of becoming. Every prayer you thought was being ignored was actually being answered in a bigger way than you dared to dream. Stay patient, stay open, stay faithful, because when Allah finally hands you what He's been preparing, it will be so beautiful, so perfectly timed, so breathtaking, that you will understand why the weight had to stretch your heart this far. 6. Your delays are actually rejections of the things that would have broken you. You look back at all the things you wanted so badly. The job you thought would change your life. The person you believed was your soulmate. The opportunity you cried and begged for. And yet, the door closed. The chance disappeared. The relationship shattered. And your heart broke quietly behind closed doors. You asked yourself, why? Why would Allah not give it to me when I wanted it so much? Wasn't it good for me? But the truth is, it wasn't Allah abandoning you. It was Allah rescuing you from something you didn't see coming. Sometimes the things you cry for are the very things that would have crushed you. The job would have pulled you away from your deen. The person would have broken your heart in ways you couldn't have repaired. The opportunity would have poisoned your soul with pride, greed, or exhaustion. Allah sees the traps hidden behind the things you wish for. You see the glitter. He sees the hidden knives. And sometimes in His mercy, He doesn't just delay it. He destroys it, so it cannot reach you. No matter how much you chase it, it hurts. It confuses you. It leaves you standing there empty-handed. But in reality, your hands were being freed to receive something better. You thought you were losing a blessing. You were actually being saved from a burden you didn't have the strength to carry. You thought you were facing rejection. You were actually being steered into protection. When Allah says no, it's never out of cruelty. It's out of a love that sees deeper than your eyes can. He knows how one wrong choice can ruin an entire future. He knows how one wrong person can derail an entire destiny. He knows how one wrong path can take years from your soul's journey back to Him. That's why He sometimes allows heartbreak, not to destroy you, but to redirect you back toward the life your heart actually needs, not just the life your ego wanted. You're not being denied, you're being preserved. You're not being forgotten, you're being guarded, because Allah didn't create you for ordinary heartbreaks. He created you for extraordinary blessings, blessings that will honor your soul, blessings that will protect your iman, blessings that will fill your life with a peace that no worldly achievement can replace. So every no you didn't understand was actually a bigger yes being prepared behind the scenes. Stay patient, stay grateful, because what Allah is preparing for you is worth every single door that had to be closed along the way. 7. Allah took you off the timeline. You envied to write a story no one will believe. You had a plan, you had a timeline in your head. By this age, I'll graduate. By this age, I'll have a career. By this age, I'll be married. By this age, I'll have my dream life. But here you are, and it didn't happen the way you thought. You see others living the life you imagined for yourself. You scroll past their announcements. You sit through conversations where everyone seems to be on track, except you. And you wonder, did I fall behind? Did I make a mistake somewhere? Is my story broken? But no, you are not broken. You have not failed. What's really happening is this. Allah took you off the map you envied to write a story that no one else would even dare to dream. Everyone else might be following a straight, predictable path. It looks clean, it looks easy, but clean and easy is not where miracles live. Miracles happen on the messy paths, the broken roads, the unexpected turns. Allah didn't create you for a life that people clap for at surface level. He created you for a life that makes people pause, reflect and say, only Allah could have written this. Your delays, your detours, your heartbreaks, they were not accidents. They were hidden chapters, training grounds, secret gardens where Allah grew parts of you that straight paths could never teach. If your life had gone exactly as you planned, you would have reached a small goal, a temporary success, a moment of applause that would have faded in days. But Allah wanted you to reach something far greater, a destiny, a legacy, a transformation, one that wouldn't just change your life, but would leave fingerprints on the lives of others for generations. That's why your story took strange turns. That's why it sometimes feels lonely, delayed, confusing, because Allah is not just giving you what you asked for. He's giving you what you didn't even know you needed. He's writing a story so deep, so breathtaking, that when it finally unfolds, it won't just make sense. It will feel sacred. The best stories are the ones that almost didn't happen. The best victories are the ones no one saw coming. The best journeys are the ones that looked like disasters in the middle, but ended in miracles. That's your story. Stay faithful. Stay steady, because when Allah finally reveals the masterpiece He's been writing in your silence, it will silence every doubt you ever had. And the world will look at you and realize this could only have been written by the one who knows no limits. 8. You feel forgotten because Allah is preparing you to be remembered in ways that matter forever. Sometimes it feels like the world has moved on without you. You're sitting quietly while everyone else seems busy. Celebrated, loved, seen. You show up for people. You celebrate their wins. You listen to their stories. But when it's your turn to fall apart, when you need support, encouragement, prayers, the room feels empty, and a small voice inside you starts to whisper, maybe I'm not important. Maybe I'm invisible. Maybe Allah has forgotten me too. But no, He hasn't forgotten you. He has hidden you, for something much, much greater. Allah is not preparing you to be remembered by people who forget so easily. He is preparing you to be remembered where it actually matters, in the heavens. While the world celebrates temporary fame, Allah is preparing your name to be mentioned by the angels, not just once, not just in passing, but with honor, with pride. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us, if Allah loves someone, He calls out to Jibreel, I love this person, so love him. And Jibreel loves him and calls out to the people of the heavens, Allah loves this person, so love him. And the people of the heavens love him. Source: Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim. You feel forgotten on earth because Allah is building your love story in the sky, when no one claps for you, when no one sees your sacrifices, when no one thanks you for your hidden struggles. Allah is writing them down, one by one, in a book that will never be lost. You are not being punished with loneliness. You are being honored with invisibility until your rewards are ready. And when Allah finally decides to bring you forward, to uncover you, to lift you up in front of the right people at the right time for the right reasons, it won't be for 15 seconds of claps. It will be for something eternal. The patience you're holding on to now, the prayers you're whispering through tears, the goodness you're giving when no one is watching. They are seeds. Seeds being watered silently, seeds being guarded fiercely, seeds that will one day burst open into gardens so beautiful. Even the angels will recognize them. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible to the one who sees everything. You are seen more deeply, loved more fiercely, remembered more carefully than you can ever imagine. Stay pure, stay sincere, stay faithful, because soon, very soon, Allah will raise you. And it won't be because you chased people's approval. It will be because you were always known, always loved, by the one whose remembrance is the only one that matters. One day, you'll look back at this season of loneliness, delays, silence, and you'll realize it wasn't the end of your story. It was the sacred beginning of everything you were praying for. Allah was never ignoring you. He was preparing you to carry blessings bigger than you ever dreamed, to walk a road so rare the world wouldn't even recognize it. Stay patient, stay hidden, stay faithful, because the same silence that feels heavy today will become the applause of the heavens tomorrow. And when Allah finally says, now is your time, nothing in this world will be able to stop the rise He wrote for you, insha'Allah.